This is the Burger Beast, and we're going beyond the smoke with Thomas Ward. I did not know one restaurant owner. I did not know a meat purveyor and anyone. I was just someone who was intrigued by a lot of things. And it was a big learning curve for me because when I got into blogging, I'd say there was probably about 10 other people blogging in Miami. And I felt outclassed. I didn't understand. They'd be talking about chefs, and this chef was at this restaurant. And I'm like, that stuff's just flying over my head.
Right. You didn't know anything.
I didn't even know who they were talking about.
Right.
So they're talking, and it took me probably 6 months to a year to kind of learn.
What year was that?
That was 2008, September 2008.
So then social media at that time was not popular.
Facebook was only a couple of years old.
Right.
Twitter, I think, started getting some momentum. It might have been around, but started getting momentum.
Because we are of the age that Twitter was for us, for food truck.
Right, that was it.
That was it. Like,
yeah,
Twitter
it was a pre-Instagram kind of thing.
Yeah. You would want to go to this food truck and you would talk about Twitter and announce it, and people would follow you there, and that was. I mean,
to be a food blogger back then was very different because you had to be committed because cell phone cameras were horrible. I mean, the first probably few months of my site, I was using a Motorola Razr. I'm sure you remember that phone. I had those pictures on my site. They're absolutely horrible. I mean, like super flat, no color, like yellowish. Yeah, and then I went back out of embarrassment, started going to the restaurants I originally wrote, and then
taking the photo
right.
again.
So and then you realize, I need a digital camera. And back then it was like you either needed a card or a plug, and it wasn't as simple as now. That sure. I mean, I remember when Instagram started, it wouldn't integrate from Google. So if you had a Google phone, you had a business page, it wouldn't let you operate. So I switched to iPhone because they were the only ones compatible with Instagram. Isn't
it crazy that people don't realize how much more work it was before to even do that? Like, I mean, because you have so many bloggers now, right? And it's just so easy.
Well, excuse me, they're not bloggers.
Whatever you want to consider.
Bloggers would be someone who have a blog and actually are committed. I mean, the
what are they
quote
considered?
Unquote they consider themselves influencers, right? I try to steer clear of that term. While I do not necessarily say that I am not one, I'm saying that kind of like what I do is a lot more than that. If you go back to the history of the things I've done, from the food trucks, we set the Guinness World Record in 2000. I now forget because 2013 we set the first Guinness World Record for largest burrito food trucks.
That was how many trucks? 100?
It was 62, I believe.
62 trucks, right, all together.
Right. Yeah,
that's a big event, man. There was a lot of drama though back then for events. I mean, event promoters, even here. I mean, I remember that because it was stupid for the food truck owners to fight with the promoters because they were giving us a lot of business and just organizing these events that took massive undertakings. Because, like, for example, we tried to put an event together that was every week. And I was doing it with Firestone. I was the one that asked for it. And it was just like, it's a lot of work to keep up with these 7, 10, 15, 20 trucks. What are they serving? Permits, license. What are they set? Like, we want to make sure that everybody makes money. We want to make sure that, you don't
have a lot of repetitive food.
Yeah.
Miami's downfall, I remember, was when I was producing events, probably I'd say 5 or 6 months before other people tried. And it started affecting my events because people who had no business were just like, I'm throwing an event here at El Dorado Furniture in Hialeah. I'm not lying about this. And then I would see people go on my page complaining about the event. And I'm like, I mean, I had
that wasn't my event.
That wasn't my event. But they'd be like, they'd book whatever truck. So then they have like 3 shaved ice truck. I'm not lying. There was 3 shaved ice truck.
In the same event.
In the same event. And there was only like 7 trucks. So when half your trucks are just shaved ice with like pre-made, like flavored sugar water, as I like to call it, because I never considered those food trucks.
No, they were dessert trucks, and
I wouldn't even go that far.
Okay, whatever it is,
I wouldn't even go that far. I wouldn't give them that much credit.
For here, our dessert truck was the Cupcake Boys, Joey and Alex, and they
I remember
Yum Yum Cupcake. They were great.
I remember tracking them down because at that time, because I used to travel to Orlando a lot at that point, I would go and try and track down. And then the brisket bus was, you know, for me, it was so good.
They are. I think I've told them many times that I was just jealous of the cupcake trucks because they would show up and then just sell out and, you know, leave the event before I was even done. And I had like 4 or 5 hours more of work to clean up the truck, and it would be a bitch.
Well, then there was trucks like in Miami. There was Sweetness, which had a truck called Sugar Rush, and they were a bake shop, and they were known for their cupcakes. But they did cupcake shakes.
Did they?
But the problem was there's only so many shakes you can do, and like the shakes I think were $5. You picked your cupcake, you picked your ice cream flavor, and then they would blend it.
$5.
Yeah, and then people are like, "Oh, they're killing it." I go, "But you have one guy dedicated at that machine making a shake like every 5 minutes. They could be making $100 an hour. That's really nothing in the general scheme of things. Like, how many burgers and sandwiches can you make in that same time?" And people didn't realize. They're like, "Look, they're killing it. Look at that line." I go, "Yeah, but that line's probably not moving," you know. And I think that
was it slow. It was a slow process.
Well, if you were just buying cupcakes, yeah, they would just sell you cupcakes. But then you're waiting, and then when they built their second truck, they actually made a little tiny window just to hand you the shakes.
Oh, really?
So they made this shake station at the end, and then so they could just hand you the shake through a little window that was made.
For me, food trucks and that whole experience was a very important lesson in merchandising. But because you learn so much of how to deal with customers, like in your face, wanting their product that I want it now. I've been waiting for 10 minutes. It's like...
There's a lot of educating going on, right? Because people thought they were at a carnival. So they would go up, order their burger. Like, "Where's my burger? I've been waiting 10 minutes. I'm like, I mean, this thing's made. We're not just stockpiling food. Waiting for you to come and be like, "Here you go, man. It's only been sitting around 3 hours."
Yeah. That's the truth. I mean, at that time, you were trying to figure out, obviously... Well, you know, food trucks had existed, but obviously, like... I think past 2 a.m. where you stopped and whatever. And now these trucks were actual restaurant, you know, chefs creating actual restaurant meals that they were just serving in a different container. So there was a major education going on in that point because that didn't exist. It just was the shitty trucks on the side of the road.
Right.
That
Roach Coach.
Yeah. I hate saying that name, but that's the truth.
It was, and there were still Roach Coaches even after that, and people would get lumped in. And I don't know if it was a local or a national did a report because we did that Arts Park event in Hollywood for 9 years, and we used to get everyone would come film because the park was beautiful. We'd be there every Monday. It was always, you know, a perfect setting. You know, people would be picnicking. And they're like, they'd have to get an okay from me to film. And I'm like, "Oh, sure, you want to film?" I'm like, "What could they possibly film?" Until I realized that they actually were filming a thing about trucks being dirty.
Oh, really?
But the problem is that none of the trucks that they were pulling the health reports on were at my event. But they're showing my event and trying to create a connection between my event and filthy trucks.
Okay.
And I was pissed. Our following event of the year, which was my Burgie event, which I think you may have attended, I did a big food truck event every year called the Burgies. Because, you know, everyone had, you know, the Emmys or all that stuff, and I did mine were Burgies. It was like an award show. That same station wrote me. They wrote the city of Hialeah where we were hosting the event and said, we'd like to film. And I was like, "No." And the city of Hialeah goes, "What do you mean no?" I go, "Yeah, absolutely not. They're not welcome at any of my events from here on out. I've never done anything again with that station." Because I was so pissed. I was like, "You could have been honest with me," but what infuriated me, if you could have been honest with everyone who was watching this, because you're trying to create an association with my event, which has nothing to do with any of these filthy trucks you're talking about.
They created this story. Did this story ever come out?
It aired. Oh, yeah. I got another station that I used to work with a lot, a local station. Some truck, a shaved ice truck, funny enough, rode in and told them that I was like a mob boss.
Oh, wow.
I'm not lying. This is the term they use. And that I owned a bunch of trucks and I owned the event, and I wasn't letting anyone into the event unless they were my truck or were my friends.
Wow.
Channel 6, who you know, knew, I mean, I have no problem saying who it was. It's just maybe not mean much unless you're in Miami, right? ran with it, and they were hoping it was true. So they showed up again. I said, hey, you're welcome. And they were asking all the trucks to figure out whether this was true. And every truck's like, no. So they wanted to get Marcel out on camera. Marcel was like, you're not going to interview. So they were hounding me. They would not give up. That the city of Hollywood wrote me and it's like, look, we really need you to talk to this person on camera. And I didn't want to, because I said, I felt like if I gave in and I talked to them, it was like me admitting something, and I was not, because it wasn't true. That was invented. And by the way, they did not tell me who the truck was. So they were like, there's this truck saying this, and I'm like, so you're going to one person can just say this and there's no proof of it, and you're just going to assume this is true. That's what blew my mind. And the lady who was doing the report blew her top because she got furious because I outed her on my Instagram. I tagged her and I said, whatever you want to ask me, you can ask me right here on social media. And then she started telling people in Channel 6 because they got back to me, and she's like, who does this guy think he is, embarrassing me like this? I've never been treated like this. I guess she had won some Emmys or something like that, which means absolutely nothing to me, if you're a liar. So, and she would not give up. She would not give up, and the city of Hollywood, and I got interviewed, and it's probably out there online somewhere. She interviews me, and she had no angle, because what was she going to ask me? I said, absolutely not. So what did she do? She pulled my contract with the city and started telling me that I was not following some of the guidelines in my contract. Like, it took a left turn. And what was even funnier than that is she wanted me, I forgot where she wanted us to film, and I said, this is when I own my museum, and I was like, no, you can come film on my, like, we're going to be on my terms if you're going to do it. Yeah, and then she's like, we're also going to do this in Spanish. I go, Spanish? So yeah, so it was recorded in Spanish and in English, and it's probably online somewhere.
I got to find it.
Yeah.
Wow. You consider basically the fact that you created that whole ambience in food trucks down there, what do you see now going on in that scene down there? Is that a dead scene?
Yeah, it's pretty dead. The city of Miami does not want food trucks. The city of Hollywood killed our event when the pandemic happened. They would not renew our contract. They took the opportunity to. You couldn't have events, so our contract was expiring that same week when they were shutting everything down. And they took that opportunity just not to renew the contract, even though it drew, 1,500, 2,000 people every Monday. And people were pissed, and then you had, again, as usual, some politician there lying about things, saying things. And by that point, Marcel and I had decided, let's just move on. These headaches will always continue when you're involved with the food trucks or organizing events.
Right.
And the city of Hollywood, the same thing. The Magic City Casino, which was, for a long time, the oldest running food truck event in the state of Florida. The city all of a sudden decided we needed some permit that we had never heard about in the previous 7 years we have been doing the event.
All right.
And said if any truck shows up here without that permit, they were going to find Burger Beast and they were going to find the casino.
Oh, wow.
So we went from having 25 trucks every third Saturday at Magic City Casino to 7 trucks who had the permit because they didn't want it, because that permit that they wanted was 5 times the amount the state permit in cost.
Wow.
Yeah. And so they shut down that event. They shut it down by saying that we needed that permit. Now, whether that permit was necessary all the time, maybe it was. But why would it take 7 years to kind of figure out that?
To figure out that you've been doing events, yeah.
And that's when Marcel and I are like, you know what? We close the ship. Right now, food trucks, they're either parked out in Wynwood, they're parked in like the outer perimeters of like Kendall and West Kendall after hours when there's no one,
Oh, really?
It's a different thing. You have to seek out trucks. Like actual grouping of trucks don't happen unless it's like a music festival. There are some that are still going on, like a tropical park.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think the city's kind of affected?
I think it's pressure from restaurants.
Is it?
Yeah, I think so. Politicians get their money from restaurants who are supporting them. It's just a reality. I mean, Hollywood, when the first time we have the Hollywood event, which was the most successful event we ever did, was started because the city of Hollywood reached out to me and said, we want a food truck event here. And I thought, we're going to do this once a month. And they're like, no, we want this every Monday. This was the city's idea. Then all of a sudden, when it blew up in popularity, all of a sudden, all these naysayers started coming out. Now, it was the day Monday was chosen because the city was totally dead. The downtown area was totally dead on Mondays. And the whole idea was to revitalize all that. And that's what happened. And I guess once the restaurants saw that, they started complaining to the city that we're taking their customers.
Yeah, but that doesn't make any sense. And that's one of the things that me sitting from the other side, like, if there's a food truck event, if there's any sort of event, it's just going to bring more people to the area.
We offered them the opportunity to set up, pass out flyers, anything. If that's what you're thinking, have the people, and they weren't having any of it. Now, how I knew that the restaurants were behind it, someone from the city wrote me and inadvertently copied all the restaurants that complained. So I knew which were the 3 restaurants that were complaining too. And that was fine. They're entitled to say what their thoughts are. No matter how wrong they are, they're entitled to it. But, you know, the event continued for years after that.
Didn't stop.
And now it stopped. And I bet if you go there now on a Monday, it's probably dead. I bet you it's dead. I don't go by there. I mean, it's 45 minutes from my house. But.
Sure. Yeah, it's very interesting because it happened here also, and then the city finally caved in and gave the rights to food trucks to park right downtown.
That's what Miami should have done a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make any difference because these trucks are usually coming around at 11 o'clock at night. There's no food. I mean, other than, you know, fast QSRs here, the Taco Bells of the world, and that's it. But other than that, like, I don't understand what the problem with the food trucks is. Just let them be. I mean, unless they park in front of your restaurant every day,
right?
You know, and they're not paying rent, then that would make sense. But for one event, like once a week, to create some sort of
one event for 4 hours.
Gee,
yeah. I mean, and they're like, they're affecting our business. I'm like, four hours on a Monday, normally the deadest day of the week, is affecting your business, and I think you have bigger problems than that. I mean,
yeah, you got to figure out what your menu's going. Like, there's a lot of things in that I would tell you it's more of a restaurant issue, not, you know, a location issue. Do you have the right food? Do you have all the right things to be doing the business? Because if people are going to a food truck event and your restaurant was known in the area, like, they would pop in.
Right.
Just in my opinion. Like, if I'm in the area and there's a restaurant that I wanted to try and people are talking about it, I'm going to stop in anyways. Even if I order at a food truck. I'm not, or today's the food truck, but eventually the next Monday I'm like, hey, let's go there.
I mean, look, Latin House made the transition from truck to restaurant. They're still around. Miss Cheesiest did. Yellow Submarine became Rock That Burger.
That's what I wanted to ask you. Like, have you seen the change from food truck to restaurant being successful down in Miami? Like, I know Miss Cheesiest was a great truck. I remember I loved it so much.
Right.
And then they went to one location. Now they have 2?
They have only one. They did have one. They did have 2 at one point.
Yeah. They had 2, and now they have only 1, yeah.
Were select trucks that were so uber popular, and then there were some trucks that were not popular and made a transition, and for a time the popular restaurant but the restaurants survived. But those are the only trucks from that original batch that opened restaurants that are still around.
Who is that?
Like the Latin House and Yellow Submarine, which had to change their name for legal reasons because there was a Yellow Submarine something or other, so they changed their name to Rock That Burger.
Okay, those are only 3.
Right, from that era, but other trucks like BC Tacos, which is a little later.
Tacos, yeah.
BC Tacos still has.
Great guy.
I think he's got a couple of restaurants, but of the original batch were those folks. And the reason I can differentiate the original batch because I consider original batch people that right around when I did the first event. So like people from that era, I consider grooving. And there's like a second wave, and then the second wave was just as great as the first wave, and then the third wave is when, you know, some of the garbage started sweeping in from the ocean.
There was some garbage. You're right. So what do you think has made those trucks successful that have kept restaurants open? Because Pig Floyd's wasn't my truck, right? So I don't know if Treehouse. Yeah, it should have been. But I don't know if I would have been more successful. But I don't know if my Treehouse restaurant would be alive today if it was turned into a restaurant. I really don't know, because like the only people that I know here that have turned from food truck in that time to restaurant has been Junior Colombian Burger, and he has 3 locations that seem to be doing good.
What about is it Crooked Spoon or something?
Crooked Spoon, yeah, but I mean I don't consider that I mean, Steve unfortunately passed away shortly after. So, I mean, that's another
I remember
operator.
that when it was a truck, though.
There was a
wasn't it?
truck,
Yeah. I just drove by the restaurant yesterday.
Yeah, he's in Claremont.
Yeah. I was around in Claremont, driving around.
Yeah.
Donut King.
Oh, where did you go? Yeah. And Marcel is probably looking in Mount Dora.
No, we haven't gone to Mount Dora.
Yeah, haven't gone to Mount Dora.
No, I try to keep her away from there.
Please, yeah. You called yourself the Burger Beast. So do people think that you only talk about burgers?
Initially.
Yeah.
I think initially it was that way because there would be like the blogger who was fine dining. And then I remember when I started a few months later, there was the French Fry Fairy. And it was this girl that loved, fries.
French fries.
Yeah. And then there's like, then other burger. I mean, the burger. In Miami, when I started, there was not a burger scene. I mean, there were burgers that had been around forever. And I realized that after starting the blog that I didn't have anywhere to go because there was no one starting new burger joints or doing anything new and interesting. It happened to coincide with an explosion of going back to the better burger because there was for a long time, in the 70s, the standardization in the 60s, 70s, 80s of fast food where everything went to frozen. Mm-hmm. Whereas originally when these chains opened, they were all fresh. So a lot of them fresh cut fries. McDonald's is a great example. And then they started switching so that they could be standardized nationally. And then, like you can, like if you're, for example, you go to Fuddruckers, right? They started doing the fresh beef thing. And historically, if you start going, you can kind of see people, the tentacles weaving themselves out there of people doing something slightly different. Shake Shack, when Shake Shack came out, revolutionary, they were using, such high quality ingredients, and it was coming from fine dining company who was really known for doing fine dining.
Yeah.
I remember first trying Shake Shack and going, what's the big deal about this thing? And then the next time I was like, oh my God, this is so good. And when I took Marcella to try it, she said, by then I was a convert. And then I took Marcella and she was like, I don't get it. And then the second time she had it, she's like, oh my God. And that's kind of like the funny thing about, I got into the blog, to go back to your original question, in 2008, because I was absolutely miserable in my retail management job, selling phones. I just felt there was no upward mobility for me. It didn't matter that I could win awards. It didn't matter to me. They wouldn't let me leave this low volume store, and it was killing me. I wanted to go to a higher volume store. And I always say if I could dramatize this like in a Lifetime movie, like I would be sitting sad on the end of the bed, and my wife would be consoling me, saying, Marcella would be like, oh, sorry, honey, I'm sorry. What can you do? And then she was the one who said, you should just do a website writing about all the places you like to eat. Okay. So then I was trying to figure out, hey, that's a great idea. It would be a good outlet. It would give me something to take my focus. I'm in Coral Gables where I manage the store. And I was like, from there, I could just every day eat at a different place in Coral Gables and start discovering, Coral Gables, which ended up happening the first year of my blog, like more than half the places I visited I was eating them during my lunchtime.
During lunchtime.
I wanted to call it, now that's a tasty burger, because I love Pulp Fiction.
You're a movie buff.
Right.
Whoever doesn't know that in the background, right?
Yeah. Because I used to own a movie store.
How have you adjusted from becoming a blog, right, which was a simple blog, to doing food truck events?
Simple? How dare you, sir?
Well, I mean, at that time, again, it wasn't what it was today. Right. Like now, it's more complex.
And the blogs were different back then too, because we didn't have the social media in the same, where we on Instagram I might just post, hey, so and so's got a deal for burgers today to Friday. You would do a post about it. So I had my first year, I had tons of posts that were kind of things like that.
Yeah, whole post.
Like a whole post. Like McDonald's has their tax day, buy a quarter pounder, get one for a By the way, that post still gets hits on my website.
Really?
Yeah, tax day, quarter pounder, buy a quarter pounder, get one for I think like a cent or something like that.
Yeah. That's funny. I just think it's interesting, obviously, how you've changed over the years and adjusted to what current standards are, because, I mean, that business by itself has changed so much. Right, the food trucks just I don't want to say disappearing, but
right, yeah, everything just evolves into
different, yeah.
And I think the food truck industry is kind of like what is now the pop-ups, right? All these people that want to do pop-ups, are essentially doing what the trucks were. Like they're super hyper focused on one type of food.
Right.
I do really great burgers, so I do a pop up and I just do burgers. Let's say with chips or something. I do a really great hot chicken. Let me do a hot chicken. I really do. And some of those people are now starting to make that transition into restaurants.
Sure. The Speakeasy burgers here. There's a guy, the gentleman that does Speakeasy. They're pretty good burgers, but
pretty good.
Yeah,
should I go track them down?
Yeah, they're pretty good. They're these guys usually.
What kind of burger is it?
Okay.
That's a smash burger.
You like smash burgers?
Yeah, those are the ones I make.
Is that all you make?
Well,
you don't like the 8-ounce burger?
I do. I think I like different restaurants for different reasons. That's why when someone goes, "What's your favorite burger?" I go, it depends. It's kind of like when someone asks someone, who's your favorite kid? They'll probably never admit, but there's probably things they like about each one. And then, for example, a char grilled burger, I want that with cheddar cheese. Like there's like rules that I've created that if I want a smash burger, I want it to be American cheese.
Okay.
Like smash burgers, I like pickle mustard onion, but that's mostly from me picking up from all my road trips and going to these old mom and pop joints from the 30s and 40s. And that's what it was, not with cheese, but like pickle, mustard, onion, some combination of that is usually when you get to a place that's been around forever. And then you don't want to be like no pickles, because I was usually a no pickles guy.
Are you?
So you get to
like
a place,
an asshole.
Right. Yeah, or they'll be like, no, that's not how it comes.
That's not how it comes.
So you just learn what's your special, what's your best. Okay, I want it exactly that way.
And then it's funny, people get fucking pissed. They get pissed if you take something off their burger.
What fritas in Miami, right? Fritas were a street food in the 1920s in Cuba, and it made its transition to Miami in the early 60s. And we started having little frita. There was one frita, a guy who had a frita cart because they were kind of like hot dog carts.
Can you explain what a frita is? Because I think a lot of people don't understand that here.
Right. So a frita cubana, which is a Cuban hamburger, is probably the easiest way to explain it, is kind of like a burger. It's actually a smashed patty. But not in the same way. It doesn't get the crust because it's seasoned with like smoked paprika. It's got like garlic and cumin, a couple other spices there, depending on who you go to. Sometimes a little bit of hot sauce. There are people who just don't do it that way. It's ground beef with the seasoning mixed in. So it's probably closer to a meatloaf into that style, right?
Oh,
Which
really?
pains me to say it, but it doesn't have breadcrumbs. Although,
BrandCrumbs?
people may put breadcrumbs into things for, filler.
Sure.
Right? Like in Mississippi, the slug burger. I mean, I'm trying to deviate. Let's not talk about history because I'll just deviate on
you know a lot of burgers. Yeah.
So the frita cubana is smashed, and it has onions, and it has julienne potatoes, thin, wispy potatoes, like hash browns almost, like the thin, crispy hash browns. And they serve them on a roll, like a Cuban roll.
Like a Cuban roll, yeah.
Right. In Cuba, originally, rolls did not exist. So what they did is they did the flauta, which was like the long bread, like the French bread, like the long bread, and then they would just slice them, and they were 2 ounces.
They were 2 ounces.
They were an equivalent to what a White Castle is back in the day.
Oh, really?
Which is why I believe it had to be someone who brought that style of burger from
the U.S.
Wichita or Ohio to Cuba. And they started, and then they just made it their own by seasoning it. In Miami, sometimes people just mix pork in. Some people mix chorizo. And then you don't really have to do the smoked paprika and the seasoning because you do it with the ground beef to give the illusion that there's chorizo in it when there isn't.
Oh, is that what it was?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the old school way to do it is ground beef with the seasening.
But there's the most famous restaurant that does it.
El Rey de las Fritas.
El Rey de las Fritas.
Yeah, the king of the fritas.
Hay uno del Mago, ¿no? I mean?
And Mago is their relative, yes. They had a falling out in the early 80s, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, that's a whole other story unto itself.
It's funny, there's a lot of that going on in Miami. That families open a restaurant together and then they go separate ways and then it's named similar.
Right. There's a place that is still open called Los Bobos Cafeteria. Which, if you don't know what Los Bobos, which is like the dummies, which, by the way, is super great. Old school cafeteria, stand only. There's no seats, cash only.
Okay.
The ladies have been working there since they opened in '81. Same ladies.
Wow.
Yeah.
Los Bobos.
Yeah, and also my dad has a sandwich named after him there.
There?
Yeah. Because my dad used to sell Wise potato chips in the '80s and '90s, and he used to do. So my dad would order the same sandwich when you go there twice a week to deliver chips. So they just put it on the menu. So it's still in there. It's serafing. Yeah.
Serafing?
Yeah. So you can actually get. They had they owned it. They had a thing called Yiso Cafeteria, and they had a falling out, and it was his uncle, and so they had at the same time. That's the first time I ever heard of anything like that, and I was a kid. But I didn't think it was that common. Then when I started writing about El Rey, and then I found out the history of Mago, that they're related, and I know both families, and I know both sides. Like, I don't go public discussing it, but I know both versions.
Both sides of the story.
And, it's just like a family thing at the end of the day. Like, they got angry at each other over something, and they're like, all right, I'm just going to go do over here and do the same thing you're doing.
And do the same thing. Yeah.
Right now, it's going on with Vicky Bakery, which is one of the most iconic bakeries in Miami. They had at one point, now they're back up to like 15 or 16 locations, I think.
Oh, wow.
Vicky Bakery. But the grandson was trying to do their last name is Cao.
Okay.
CAO. So now they're using it as Cuban American Original. And he started doing Cao by Vicky. And somewhere there was some disconnect. And he owned a bunch of franchises with his partners, and they're now Cao Bakery, and it's a separate entity. I don't know what happened there. I just know Vicky Bakery has a ton, and them combined have like 30 locations.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they're all over Broward County and Miami-Dade County. And it's also weird for me because I produce these food events where I had Vicky Bakery every year.
You had both.
Right. Yeah. Well, I've had events where I had both, but the people I dealt with from Vicky Bakery are the people who do Cao.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So those are the people that I'm familiar with. So when I do events, I talk to them. It's very odd. And also I think I had my guava sriracha ketchup, which my sauce, and Cao sold that at all their stores.
How did that come about? Because I always find that interesting, like how you've evolved as a brand and now you have a ketchup.
Right. It happened because I was doing pop-ups. So when I opened the museum, I had this grandiose vision. Oh, everyone's going to come flock here. And we were outside of Magic City Casino. Again, great partners for me. I pitched them, hey, what do you think about me doing a museum here? I invited them to our office. They saw all the stuff I had. And I said, yeah, and check out the storage. And I showed them. And I told them, what do you think if I did a museum? And they were all about it. And they're like, what if we build you a building? Like, they wanted to build me a building just for this. Yeah.
Wow.
And I said, no, I want this space here. And they had a closed off space near the front.
Sure.
That was the original entrance of the casino, like in the 30s and 40s. And I go, because of the history of the building, I want to be where the history of it was. The sauce was created when I was trying to struggle to get people to go to the museum. And I said, well, what if I set up a cart and just do like an old school burger? It was called the Burger Beast Burger Cart. Wow, very original of me, huh? And we set up a cart outside and we were just doing smash burgers. This was 5 years ago. The April 1st, 2017 was when we did our first pop-up.
Really?
Yeah. And the first one, I did not have the sauce. Then on the 22nd, which was 3 weeks later, I just found this the other day in one of my memories, either on Facebook or Instagram. I announced, you come try the Burger Beast sauce. And that's when, but even that version of the sauce is not the one that eventually gets bottled. That version was a much more intricate to make.
Really?
And it was spicier because it has sriracha, right? So it's guava sriracha ketchup. The sriracha is way more pronounced.
Really?
And it involved like a barbecue sauce, like you're boiling things down. And
how did you how did you just like guava and you like ketchup?
I do not actually eat a lot of ketchup. I'm not that, especially for burgers. But
you like guava.
But I like barbecue sauce. And this is actually kind of like a barbecue sauce recipe. And it's based off of, there was a burger restaurant that closed within the last year, R.I.P. Biff Burger in, I think it's in St. Petersburg. At one point, they were a chain that was in a few states.
Really?
And Biff Burger had their sauce, and their sauce was like a barbecue ketchup. And I found a copycat, and I was at home, and I was going to try and recreate it because that might be a cool thing to put on my burger. And when I'm trying to make it, I realized I didn't have half the ingredients. So I just started subbing, but I wrote all the notes.
Okay.
And that's how I came up with the sauce.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I was attempting to make something else and came up with something totally different. I was like, let me put some jalapeno. When I worked in a movie theater, we used to spice the nacho cheese by getting the can, the jars of the candy, not candy, just the pickled jalapenos, and pour the water into the cheese, and we would stir it in. This was like a corporate thing for the movie theater we worked at.
Really?
And so it would give the nacho flavor, but it wasn't spicy because it didn't have seeds. So then I was like, I was like, let me put some jalapeno water into this. And yeah, it was just...
And that sauce, and also you became very creative during the pandemic. You were doing some burger boxes, right?
Right. We're still doing them. We're just sticking to doing them once a year. We're doing it for the end of National Burger Month, which is May. And now we're going to do them in insulated bags. We've evolved. We continue to evolve. Wow. We continue to evolve. So they're insulated bags that say in Be Sweet Trust on one side, and then it has the Burger Beast logo.
It's sort of a pop-up.
Yeah, it's sort of a nightmare too.
It's sort of a nightmare
because we hand deliver them.
Yeah.
Like if you order them and you're in Miami and you order them, you will see me driving. You will see Marcella getting off to hand you your box or your bag, and people like don't believe it, and they come out to make sure I'm really in the car.
But you're really in the car.
No,
yeah.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, I'm the one driving for like 9 hours. Yes.
Yeah, I know you dedicate a lot of time to that, and so. Let's talk a little bit more about the restaurant because I'm really interested.
I know you're trying
to avoid it because I think it's the next step, obviously, in your career where you go into basically our scene. I know you've been in it before, but I'm just saying like now you're seeing the other side of it, which is, you guys bought a restaurant that had been around for how long?
Almost 9 years.
9 years? And you've started to evolve it and change it, and Nadal is one of your partners, and he's very experienced in the restaurant business. So how has that experience been? What have you learned?
Well, it's interesting.
So listen.
Well, I think the thing that people who are not, and I was, like you said, I was in the industry, but I was not like
in the
on
restaurant,
that side,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
On the side, it's different. The pandemic has caused a bunch of stuff, including the rising costs of food, which we were discussing on the phone, I think, yesterday.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh my God, the price, people who attend restaurants are complaining, and you're like, yeah, that's because you don't realize the cost of everything just like skyrocketing. Sure. And they don't realize it's not just like chicken.
Everything.
Like this week, that just went up like, I think, $30 a case.
Everything.
It's like the paper goods, everything. And then sourcing. Then you can't get some things. So people are like, I can't believe you don't have X. And we're like, it's not that we don't want to have it. It's just no way to get it.
Right.
If we're using a particular brand of flour, and then they're like, well, I mean, we might have it over here.
Yeah.
Then you're trying to, where can I find this flour? What flour is similar to this? Because then if I make all my dishes with this flour, maybe everything tastes totally different. The people don't, I think, realize that aspect of it right now. And as far as my involvement in the restaurant, you may see me seat you because if it gets busy, you'll see me if I'm there. But I do a lot of the back end stuff.
Sure.
So I'm also involved with I do the social media. I meet with the chef, even though Nadal's food guy also. I meet with the chef on Thursdays. We talk about dishes. We photograph stuff for social media.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. And like I said, it's National Burger Month, so of course we got to do a different burger every week. This week we're doing a burger named after my best friend, Ed, because he eats his meatball subs, which I thought was very odd, with pepperoni and mayonnaise.
Wow.
So I told our chef, I was like,
pepperoni and mayonnaise.
So I said, why don't we do a burger that has mozzarella, pepperoni, red sauce like marinara, right? And then let's put mayo. And the chef's like, that's weird. I'm like, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. And I had the meatball sub, and then Ed, he's like, you love it. Admit you love it, but I do not want it. I mean, it's good. It's not what I expected. And I almost don't want to admit to Ed that it's good because I feel like he's going to throw it in my face. But then the chef tried it and he goes, it's really good.
It's really good.
No, the burger's really good. Today's the first day it's on the menu, actually.
So you bottled your sauce. Now you're a restaurant owner. What's next?
We're in front of the Okeechobee River. I've thought about just walking in there, just like dropping myself in there and seeing where I go. Like on the crazy days, I feel like just crossing the street and just throwing myself into this river right here.
Really?
No, because sometimes it's the madness, like the things that happen. You've been in the industry, and I think I've seen everything, and I've worked like so many angles in the food industry, and now I'm actually in the restaurant side of it, and I guess nothing ever at this point. Nothing can surprise you because you're like, I'm not surprised.
Yeah. You see some crazy shit. I mean, and that's the part that I think people don't understand in the restaurant portion of it. Like, not only now are you taking care of a building, making sure that people go to it every day, because you obviously have to pay your bills, but then you have 25, 30 people that are doing the job that you have to get through.
And the kitchen folk and then the servers are different, so different people, right?
It's crazy. Yeah, the front of the house is so different. And then they complain
about each other about nonsense, and you're like, this is so ridiculous. I feel like I'm dealing with children sometimes. Yeah. Like I hear the stories, I'm like, this guy's angry because he comes and he makes off the menu
things,
off the menu stuff. Yeah.
And I don't understand why we can't sell the off the menu stuff.
Yeah, and since I'm the one who handles like the POS, I'm like, we have an open item button which I'm dying to delete. I'm like, I wish that didn't exist.
Yeah, really.
Well, because we want to see what we sold for the week, and then it says, and we sold 10 open item, and then our POS does not tell you what it was, so. I just won't know.
You're just trying to figure it out.
Right.
Yeah. That's the difficulty, and it's a full service restaurant, right?
Yeah.
So it's the difficulty of just handling that. How big of a change have you guys made to the restaurant in the last 7 months, though?
We brought in, ironically enough, 2 chefs.
Okay.
It did not have a chef. The previous restaurant owner was running the kitchen. Michelle and David, they used to own a food truck called the Purple People Eatery.
Okay.
We're friends of Marcel and I. And when I took over, I actually put like a rent. I had not mentioned we were taking over a restaurant, so I just put like a blanket looking for front and back of house staff. Please let me know if you're interested. I put that on my personal, on Burger Beast, just to see what happened. And they text Marcel and they're like, whatever Sef's doing, want to be involved. And so they've been there. They started working with us maybe 3-4 weeks after we took over.
You talking about the chefs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're still there.
Are they?
She does all the pastries. He runs the kitchen.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And they elevated the food, and the quality of the food, the ingredients we're using, and where I can, I try to involve, I don't remember where they were buying ice cream from, but the local ice cream place called Fry's Cream, we get the ice cream from there. Anywhere that I have a relationship with Panther Coffee, I'm friends with them. We switched to Panther Coffee. So any of my friends' businesses that I can integrate using locally made honey or anything like that, which we've done, Babe's Meat Encounter, which I'm a big fan of. We've done specials with their bacon. We will. We did, a few months ago, we did a Luther Burger with Mojo Donuts.
That's pretty cool.
And then we also did with our betters.
Why didn't you call me?
Huh?
I'm kidding.
Come on down. No, I'm going to hold you to it.
Yeah, well, now I have a restaurant to cook out of. Yeah.
All right. No, but you can come down.
Yeah.
We can do something.
We should do ribs, yeah.
We did Our Better's Hot Dogs, which opened in 1959. I'm friends with them. They have the most incredible chili that's based off a spaghetti meat sauce recipe.
Really?
And we did a chili burger. As a matter of fact, whenever we do my burger, which is called the Burger Beast, which are 2 smashed patties, and we put his chili on it, we call it the Way Better.
The Way Better? Because it's way better.
Yeah.
Restaurant ownership, obviously you guys changed the menu. And now I'm interested in the dynamics, right? Because now you've put in chefs. You've obviously probably fixed the restaurant itself physically.
Yes.
You've made some changes. Have you seen it in your sales?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It was instant.
It was not instant.
No.
It was not. We got a lot of pushback from the locals. They said we didn't know what we were doing.
Okay.
They were kind of disgruntled because Miami Springs is a little town. If you're not familiar with it, it's right next to the airport.
Okay. So
there's a lot of hotels there, so we get a lot of tourists come too. But it's a lot of our sales are locals, and they were not happy with the changes. We were also viewed as outsiders because we did not live in Miami Springs.
Okay.
And that's fine. As it became a thing where we kind of have to win people over. And then when they saw, the New Times started writing about us, the Miami Herald started writing about what we were up to.
Right.
All of a sudden,
the support came.
Yeah.
Really?
We're the most beautiful kid on the block.
Are you? Yeah.
Yeah. We're looking super cute right now.
Are you? If you're saying that it's a small place, Like they have to get adjusted
it's not that
to
small. I mean, we could seat about almost 250.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying Miami Springs as a town, right? As a little town, people feel like these guys are walking in trying to, you know.
Well, it was family owned, and you know, we took over from his family that lives in Miami Springs, and people were behaving like as if we had stolen the restaurant from them, and it's like, no, they didn't want the restaurant anymore. That's why they sold it. You know?
Really?
Yeah.
I find that interesting because I'm looking into buying restaurants, obviously, that had a previous operator, and I'm just always interested in like changing the concept and adjusting what's been going on operationally inside the restaurant. Obviously that gets people riled up because they're so used to something on the menu, or that they weren't looking at it, didn't work. You sell 2 of them and people are like, oh my God, you took it off the menu. I'm like, yeah, it doesn't fucking work.
Yeah, they don't understand that.
They don't understand that portion of it. Yeah.
When we became interested in it, Nadal and I started eating there once or twice a week, so we could order everything on the menu and kind of gauge what we wanted to mess with. There's only one dish I would say that we have not met. No, maybe 2. But the main one, the chicken fried chicken, which is the most popular dish, which is a southern fried chicken breast on a bed of mashed potatoes. And we changed the mashed potatoes also because we didn't care for it. We went to like real potatoes. Yeah. That's the only thing we haven't tinkered because it was such a hot commodity. And the fried biscuits, which are fried, you know, like southern biscuits. And then we had sourcing issues because of the flour and all that stuff with that. So we didn't have that for a period of time. People were like, they took the fried biscuits off the menu. I'm like, yeah, I mean, like, not intentionally, you know. And then, and a lot of things got upgraded. But I mean, like the mac and cheese, they had grits. You could get grits. And we both did not care for the grits. And our first mission was like, when the chef took over, when David took over, I was like, we need to change these grits. Like, they have to be like badass. And we think they're badass now. They're great. Like when I go there and we have a meeting, that's like you get something to snack on. We always test the grits.
The grits?
The mashed potatoes, I said, now are like a cheddar mashed potato. The cream gravy was something that was already there that we don't mess with. And then now we're kind of trying to evolve. Like, so the chicken fried chicken is such a popular dish. We're like, well, I was telling them we should use the ale house. I know there's a Miller's Ale House here in Orlando, but they're all over Miami, and they have a popular dish called Zingers, right? Which are the breaded chicken tenders with the sauce, and then they have Zinger salad and all the stuff. And I was like, this chicken fried chicken should be like our Zingers, right? Like we should make everything out of this. Like so now we just a few weeks ago added a chicken fried chicken sandwich, cream gravy, chicken breast, 2 pickles, brioche bun.
Super simple.
Yeah, and it's selling, and then. Where like Marcella, it's like, oh, why don't we do a mac and cheese? Why don't we do a salad? I know it sounds ridiculous, but hey,
people like it. Yeah, people like it, and it's fried.
Yeah, I mean, we were just literally discussing that yesterday about doing the salad, and everyone stayed quiet because on the drive out to Orlando, I was on a conference call with the managers and stuff, and when it all and Marcella's like, I said, Marcella thinks we should do a salad, and they're all quiet. They're like. We never considered, putting like a fried chicken on a salad with cream gravy on a salad. But everyone gets the funny thing about salads is like some people really eat salads to be healthy, and then some people like douse this in blue cheese and ranch, and you're like, this is no longer
a salad. This is
right.
Just...
So I'm like, why couldn't it just be a cream gravy instead? I don't know because I don't touch the green stuff.
So in your whole process of your evolution in the last 13 years, what do you think was a moment that you kind of considered like, oh shit, now I know why I'm in this?
I think there's a lot of moments, right? When we do events and, you see everyone happy posting on social media stuff that they had a great time. Like Croqueta Palooza is a perfect example. Croqueta Palooza was an event that was not supposed to happen. Croquetas now in Miami are like such an iconic finger food. It was not always that way. I mean, people, I guess maybe it was
I want to go in the croqueta business.
I had a concept to do a croqueta business, and then Miami, someone did it called Dos Croquetas. They've done a phenomenal job with it, where they just do all these different flavored croquettes. And it's funny because Miami is like the Cuban style croquettes are longer. They're like logs, and a lot of people when social media was starting to get big, Instagram because of pictures. I would post them and people were like, what is that, a mozzarella stick? I'm like, Oh my God. And then I forget. And we're not in Miami. I'm thinking everyone who follows me is from Miami. They're not. So
my croqueta business is going to be Called Johnny Crockett's.
You did tell me that.
El Rey de la Croqueta.
Right. That's a good idea. Mine was called, mine was going to be called the Croquetero. Yeah, and I have a frita concept called El Hijo de la Gran Frita, which is the son of the great frita. And the whole thing was that he was the kid, the like the son of El Mago and El Rey.
That's funny. That's funny.
I even have a logo. He's wearing he's got like a little wand, and then he's got a little a crown.
There's a few ideas that we probably just. I maybe they come to fruition now that you're in the restaurant business. Now you just have no.
I like talking about them.
The Johnny Crockett's one I want to do. I've always even wanted to do a factory because I think croquetas are such a.
Why don't you do like the factory next to the restaurant, and you can kind of see the croquetas being like rolled.
Rolled, yeah.
Yeah, and then you pick like like when you go to like a seafood place, and you're like, I want that fish. I want that batch.
Well, we went to a Spanish supermarket the other day, and I was showing my girlfriend like the different brands, Titan and Quiquet, that were from Puerto Rico, that did empanadillas, right? And like fried stuff for like parties and stuff like that you could buy in the frozen area. And I always loved that business because, I mean, I kind of grew up in it, right? We were always in the food distribution business, and I like the croquetas, man. I just see so much opportunity in it to do small spots with croquetas and coffee. That's it.
There is, and whoever wants to steal this idea, by the way, they should. Are there farm stores up here?
Farm stores?
No,
I don't know what a farm store is. But.
Okay, so it's all over South Florida. I know it's in other states. I don't know how prevalent it is, but it's a drive-through convenience store. So it's double-sided. It's almost like, but you come in on one side like this and this, so then you can pull in, and then it's just like a little tiny building with flaps. And then it's just like a convenience store, and you're like, can I get a loaf of bread, a gallon of milk, and all this stuff? But now they even sell croquetas. I actually just on my Instagram put a video about it. And
really?
Yeah, my mom's like, and the video is funny because you hear my mom saying, do you work for them now? Because I was talking so glowing about them. And I just love farm stores, but there's a lot of farm stores that have gone out of business. And I said, this would lend itself to a perfect little 24-hour spot, like to do a Frita shop. And there was a guy who wanted to do something like that. And I told El Rey de la Fritas, hey, you should take this. You can do fritas 24 hours a day. It's just drive through. You got 2 lanes, you know what I mean? And they come back to me and they're like, you know what? We don't franchise, but her mom is really, and she's like, my mom said she'll let you franchise to. I'm like, no, I don't want to do it. I want you to do it.
I don't want to run that. Why would I do that?
I don't want to run a 24 hour. I want it to exist so I can go to it.
So I can go to it. Yeah, that's funny.
But a croqueta thing will be cool if you did that.
Johnny Crockett's, baby. Thanks for taking the trip and doing this, man.
No, bro.
I really appreciate it.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to pay you back for that dozen Krispy Kreme.
Shut the fuck up.
That I didn't want. That I didn't even want. I was going to bring, I kept the box all these years. I was going to bring one in.
13 years later. Hey, man, here's the box back. Thank you so much. Hey, thanks for watching. I'm going to sit here to subscribe. Hello? Subscribe.